I saw them, churches that seemed unshakable, mighty, untouchable, towers of faith that rose above the nations, or so it appeared. But beneath the surface, they were crumbling, slowly, silently. Some were already dead, though no one knew. Their lights flickered, their doors were open to darkness, yet the world called them strong. Some faced death, not in a distant prophecy, not in a far-off war, but right in their homes, their streets, their very hearts. Men, women, children, trembling before rulers, mobs, and unseen powers. And yet, they endured. Some with courage, some without even realizing it. Some tolerated sin. Not openly, not proudly, but quietly, secretly. They looked the part of holiness, prayers on their lips, songs on their tongues, yet their hearts entertained deceit, compromise, and things they knew they should have resisted. And some, the worst of all, didn't even know they had lost their first love. They had forsaken the passion that had once burned in their hearts. They could quote scripture, lead prayers, and defend doctrine, but Christ had been moved to the background of their lives, a distant memory, a lukewarm companion. I was there, on Patmos, alone, exiled, the sea lapping at jagged rocks beneath my feet, the sun burning behind the clouds, the wind like the breath of 1,000 unseen spirits. Then it came, the vision, not slowly, not gently. It struck me like lightning, a presence, radiant, terrifying, more alive than any creature I had ever known. Eyes blazing like fire, feet shining like polished bronze, voice like rushing waters and thunder intertwined. Oh, I fell to the ground. My hands trembled, my knees shook, my mind struggled to comprehend. And he spoke, words I could not ignore, words that seared themselves into my memory, not as a story, not as a metaphor, but as a warning, a command, a revelation. I saw it all, the churches, the people, their choices, and the consequences of those choices. One wrong step, one compromise, and all could collapse. I saw some crumble under persecution. I saw some fall under the weight of pride. I saw some turn their backs without knowing why. And I realized I was witnessing not just the fate of cities, but the fate of souls. I saw darkness creep into halls of worship, shadows slither across altars, candles guttered, bells tolled not in celebration, but in warning. I felt the tension, as if the air itself were heavy, pregnant with judgment and mercy, intertwined like the roots of an ancient tree. And yet, through it all, a single thread of hope shimmered. Christ himself, standing above the chaos, unshakable, radiant, calling out to those who would listen, to those who could still hear. One wrong choice, one compromise, one forgotten love, and everything could fall apart. But one act of courage, one spark of faith, one heart turned fully toward him, and all could be redeemed. This is what I saw, and this is what I wrote. By the time you hear the full story, you will see things that few have ever seen, things that will make your heart tremble and your mind question everything you thought you knew about faith. I will show you a church that looked alive, proud, upright, and unshakable, yet in reality, it was dead. Its altars burned, but its heart had gone cold. Its prayers sounded sweet to human ears. Yet Christ saw the emptiness within. They carried their banners of righteousness high, while their souls were silently crumbling. You will see another church, wealthy beyond measure. They had gold, trade, influence, and respect. Men called them rich, envied their prosperity. Yet inside, they were starving. starving for truth, starving for passion, starving for the fire of Christ that once burned in their hearts. And there was a church that faced persecution so severe, so relentless. Some of its members would die. They would be dragged from their homes, their bodies bruised, their names cursed, their families trembling. Yet even in the midst of death, Christ called them rich. Rich because they had something no power could take: faith, courage, and endurance that surpassed all earthly measure. But there is one warning, one letter that cuts deeper than any sword, that pierces through pride, comfort, and complacency. It is a letter that may confront you more than the others, because it forces the soul to examine itself. It asks the question, have you forsaken your first love? I cannot tell you yet which church this is. I cannot tell you which letter will shake you to your core. Not now. To reveal it too soon would rob you of the journey, the unfolding, the slow and terrible revelation of truth. You must stay with me. You must walk through each vision as I saw it, feel what I felt, and hear the words as they were spoken by Him who is radiant and terrifying all at once. There will be moments when you will feel fear, moments when your heart will pound and your mind will question whether anyone, even you, could withstand the trials, the compromises, the darkness. But do not turn away. Hold on, because the truth, the promise, is far greater than the fear. You will see things that seem impossible, churches destroyed from within, leaders blind to the peril, faithful hearts battered by persecution. And yet, through it all, Christ's voice calls, unwavering, commanding, yet full of mercy. Every church has a story, every letter has a warning, every promise has a cost. And as we go from one city to the next, you will realize these letters are not just for the people of Asia Minor. They are for every soul who dares to follow Him. They are for you. So I ask you, will you stay? Will you follow the journey as I saw it, step by step, letter by letter? Will you hear the praises, the rebukes, the warnings, and understand the peril of lukewarm faith, of pride, of compromise, of fear? If you stay with me, if you endure, if you listen closely, the truth will unfold before your eyes. The stories of the churches, their triumphs, their failures, their warnings will be revealed. And in the end, you may recognize yourself in one of them. But remember, some truths are hard to face. Some letters cut deeper than the sword. And yet, it is only by looking directly into them, only by facing the danger, the compromise, the decay, that redemption, courage, and faith can truly shine. Stay with me. The letters are coming. The warnings are coming. The revelations are coming. And when the final truth is revealed, you will understand why nothing can ever be taken for granted in the eyes of Him who sees all. I want you to understand the world I saw, the world I lived in while exiled on Patmos. Not just the geography, not just the cities, but the weight of what was unfolding before my eyes. I was alone, completely alone. The sea pressed against the rocks below me like an endless, restless beast. Every wave whispered secrets I could not understand. The sky above was heavy, dark with clouds I could not name, and yet there was a strange light, a light that seemed to pierce the darkness before He appeared. I tried to comprehend it, tried to steady my heart, but nothing in my life had prepared me for the vision that came. Then He appeared, radiant, glorious, terrifying, His eyes like flames, His feet like polished bronze, His voice like rushing waters, thunder intertwined with whispering wind, commanding, unyielding, alive. He spoke not as one distant from the world, but as one who saw everything, every heart, every thought, every choice, past, present, and future. And then he called to the churches, the 7 churches of Asia Minor, and I understood that what I was witnessing was not just history, but prophecy. Not just letters to cities, but letters to the souls of all who would hear them. He spoke of Ephesus, of Smyrna, of Pergamum, of Thyatira, of Sardis, of Philadelphia, of Laodicea. At first, they seemed ordinary, human, imperfect. I could almost see their streets, their altars, their marketplaces. I could feel the warmth of the people, the sweat of their labor, the fear in their eyes. Their prayers rose like smoke into the night. Their songs echoed in the hills. But beneath the surface, something else stirred, something hidden, something that even the strongest among them could not see. Each letter, each message was layered. Praise, rebuke, warning, promise, not in order, not as a simple story, but interwoven like threads in a tapestry. Some threads burned brightly, others smoldered quietly, waiting to ignite. And as I watched, I realized I was not merely observing cities or people. I was watching the fate of entire souls unfold before me, like a river winding through darkness and light. I saw Ephesus, proud, diligent, laboring, but their hearts cold. I saw Smyrna, trembling, poor, persecuted, yet rich in ways the world could not understand. I saw Pergamum, standing near the throne of darkness, yet holding on to the truth with trembling hands. I saw Thyatira, industrious, loving, yet allowing corruption to creep quietly in their midst. I saw Sardis, alive in appearance, dead at the core. I saw Philadelphia, small, weak, almost invisible, yet faithful, unshakable, rewarded beyond their imagining. I saw Laodicea, wealthy, comfortable, self-sufficient, yet blind to the danger within. And I realized each church was a mirror, not just for themselves, but for every generation, every soul that would hear this vision. For you, listening now, you too are reflected in these letters, perhaps in more than one. The air was heavy with tension. I could feel the weight of the judgments to come, and the mercy that was yet offered. I felt fear. I felt awe. I felt the burden of responsibility to write it all down, to bear witness. And I knew, even before I wrote a single word, that these letters were not just messages to 7 distant cities. They were messages to all who would follow him. Messages to those who labor without love, to those who suffer with courage, to those who compromise with darkness, to those who think they are alive but are dead, to those who are faithful in smallness, and to those who are blind in wealth and comfort. I saw it all, and I trembled, for each letter was a warning, a guide, a revelation. And as I held the vision, I understood something terrifying and beautiful all at once. The letters would not only expose the faults of the churches, they would expose the faults of every soul willing to hear them. Pay attention. Watch closely. Hear what I saw. For the fate of these churches is not just history. It is a mirror, a warning, a revelation, and the truths hidden within them will not leave you unchanged. Do you see it now? Each city, each letter, a reflection. Each sin, each triumph, a shadow cast across time. And each promise, a light piercing the darkness for those who will listen. I first wrote to the church in Ephesus. I saw them, their works, their endurance, the tireless labor of hands and hearts committed to the name. They had driven out false teachers. They had condemned deceit. They had resisted the lure of heresy and idolatry. Men and women in that city could stand proud, and many did. Yet, I noticed something chilling beneath the surface. Their first love, the fire that had once consumed their hearts for Christ, had faded. Their devotion had become routine. They labored without passion. They served without longing. They fought evil, yet sometimes without the warmth of a burning heart. I walked among them in vision. I could see the sweat on their brows. I could hear their chants and prayers. And yet, I could feel a hollow echo beneath their words. The energy of the spirit, once vibrant, now flickered like a candle struggling against the wind. I wondered, could they recover? Could a church so diligent, so righteous in appearance, return to the fire that once burned in their hearts? Could they reclaim the passion that had carried them from the first day? Christ had promised them the reward of the tree of life, eternal fellowship, eternal joy. But he added a condition, only for those who overcome. And I knew many might not, not because of heresy, not because of persecution, but because of the quiet death of the heart. I watched them labor. I saw their meetings, their prayers, their defenses against false doctrine. And yet, each act stripped of love was hollow, like a body without a soul. Their hands were busy, their hearts weary, distracted, drifting. Have you ever done all the right things, yet felt empty inside? Have you ever labored tirelessly and wondered why your soul felt cold? That is what I saw in Ephesus, a city alive in works, dead in spirit. I remember walking past their marketplaces in vision. Children ran through dusty streets, laughter echoing. Women carried baskets of bread. Men hammered in workshops. The city thronged with life. Yet my heart felt the absence of the love that should have filled it. Even in their resistance to false teachings, I saw the danger. They condemned deceit, yet sometimes without grace. They hated evil, yet sometimes without mercy. Faith without love is hollow, and that hollow can consume even the strongest among them. I lingered over their altars. I saw incense rising like smoke, prayers lifting to the heavens, and yet the fire in their hearts dimmed. I knew some would never feel it again unless something extraordinary happened. A spark, a confrontation, a revival from above. And I saw the consequences. Those who refused to return to that first love would labor endlessly, without fulfillment. They would preach and teach, yet the sweetness of the Spirit would escape them. They would endure trials, yet without joy. They would fight falsehood, yet without warmth in their hearts. I watched as some began to sense it, the hollowness within. A few hearts stirred. A few remembered the fire, the longing, the first love. But many, too many, went on, blind to the danger lurking in their devotion. And then I remembered the promise again, the tree of life, eternal reward, only for those who overcome. And I knew, watching them, that the difference between those who would see it and those who would not was in the heart, not in works, not in labor, but in love. Ephesus, the city of works without warmth, the city that could fight every heresy, resist every enemy, yet perish because of a dying heart. That is what I saw. That is what I wrote. This was the first warning, the first mirror. Oh, and it cut deeper than swords, fires, or persecution. It cut straight to the soul. Next, I saw Smyrna. I saw poverty, I saw hunger, I saw homes of crumbling stone where families huddled in fear. The people, their faces gaunt from labor, from persecution, from endless vigilance. They carried the weight of the world on trembling shoulders. Persecution stalked them like a predator. Imprisonment was a constant shadow. Some would be seized in the dead of night, their doors broken down, their cries echoing through the streets. Death hovered above them, a dark, silent cloud waiting to descend. And yet, even in this misery, Christ called them rich. At first, I could not understand it. I could not reconcile it. How could suffering be wealth? How could trembling hands or trembling hearts, imprisoned bodies, be richness in the eyes of the Almighty? But he spoke, words that shook me to the marrow of my bones. Be faithful until death, and I will give you the crown of life. I watched their terror. I saw men huddled in hidden rooms, their hands shaking as they clutched scrolls of scripture. I saw women trembling, holding children to their breasts, whispering prayers that no one else could hear. I saw their eyes, wide with fear, glistening with tears, knowing that tomorrow could be their last. And yet, in the spirit I saw something extraordinary. Their fear did not break them. Their trembling did not undo them. Their poverty, their persecution, their imprisonment, it became a forge. Each trial, each lash, each stolen moment of peace tempered their souls. I saw them rise in spirit, even as the world sought to crush them. I saw invisible crowns resting on their heads in the vision, glowing faintly in the darkness. And I realized, suffering, in the hands of God, can become richness. Faith, pressed by adversity, becomes a treasure beyond measure. Have you ever faced something that seemed to destroy you? Every hope, every comfort, every security stripped away, only to discover that it was preparing you for eternity? I watched some fall. Some succumbed to despair, their hearts hardened by suffering, unable to see the crown awaiting them. But those who held on, those who trusted, trembling though they were, they shone with a light the world could not touch. I saw a man hiding in a cellar, see breath ragged, listening as soldiers passed above. I saw a mother silently passing bread to a friend's child in the dark, knowing it could cost her life. I saw children praying in whispers, hands folded, asking for protection from dangers they barely understood. And yet, victory was theirs, not in the worldly sense, not in riches or fame, but in the unseen realm, in the eternal. Their souls were rich, fuller than any treasure the earth could offer. I realized then the paradox of Smyrna: poverty and wealth, suffering and triumph, trembling and courage. What the world calls weakness, God calls treasure. What the world calls death, God calls life. And I, John, writing these words on Patmos, trembled, not because of fear alone, but because I understood the magnitude of what I saw. That a church could be poor in the eyes of the world, crushed under the weight of persecution, yet rich beyond measure in the spirit. I wrote to them, not to boast of their trials, but to reveal the truth. In suffering, they could find eternal riches. In persecution, eternal life. In fear, faith refined like gold. And I ask you now, as you listen, have you ever faced something that seemed to destroy you, that stripped away your security, your comfort, your hope? But in truth, it was preparing you for eternity. This is the paradox of Smyrna, a city trembling beneath the shadow of death, yet crowned in the unseen realm. Their poverty, their fear, their persecution, transformed into treasure, into glory, into victory. Stay with me in the next episode, because what I saw next was not persecution from outside, but corruption from within.